New series ranking the best pro sports cities. For this, the main factor I'm considering is the success of the teams that play there, but if it's close between certain cities, my tiebreaker will be things like game day atmosphere or fan support. Also, I'm only considering the 4 major sports, so NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL. Things like MLS or WNBA weren't considered for this. To qualify, a city had to have at least 2 teams, so 31 teams made the cut. 31st had to go with Cincinnati. The Reds have only made the playoffs twice in the last 25 years, and the Bengals, although they've made the playoffs, haven't won a playoff game in 30 years and have 0 titles. 30th is Phoenix. Pretty much the entire bottom portion of this ranking series is cities that only have 2, maybe 3 teams, but Phoenix has 4, so that shows you how terrible their teams are. In fact, they've had almost 200 total seasons between the 4 teams and only have 1 championship. 29th is Charlotte. Now, the Panthers did make 2 Super Bowl runs, but they lost both and haven't been relevant besides those seasons. And the Hornets are one of the worst franchises in the NBA. They rarely make the playoffs and have the worst season in NBA history. 28th is Buffalo. They only have 2 teams, and neither of them are very good. The Sabres haven't made the playoffs in the last 10 years and have 0 Stanley Cup titles, and the Bills have only made the playoffs twice in the last 20 seasons, and even though they've been to 4 Super Bowls, they haven't won a single one. 27th is Las Vegas. Now, both of the teams in their city are fairly new, so they don't have much history there, so that's why the city wasn't much higher. But the Golden Knights have actually been pretty good. They've been one of the better teams in the NHL since they entered the league, but since they're so new, obviously they don't have a championship yet, and that's why I couldn't put them any higher. And the Raiders only have 1 playoff appearance in the past 18 years and don't have a great history, so that's why Vegas is here. 26 is Nashville. The Predators have been really good lately, but they've yet to win a Stanley Cup title. Same thing with the Titans. They're a team on the rise, but they don't have a Super Bowl win. Both of these teams are actually doing pretty well for themselves, but since they're both fairly new in comparison to the teams they're competing against and don't have any titles yet, they couldn't be any higher. 25th is Milwaukee. The Brewers have been okay recently, but they've still never won a World Series title. The Bucks are actually one of the best teams in the NBA right now and over the past few seasons, but they haven't won a title in almost 50 years and they've only won 1. So even though these teams are doing really well right now, their lack of success all time hurts them in this rankings, and so I couldn't put them any higher. 24 is Atlanta. All 3 teams in this city are just kind of okay. The Hawks haven't been great, but they did win a title back in 1958. The Falcons have been solid, but we all know what happened to them the last time they were in the Super Bowl. The Braves are the only thing that helped them make it this far. They do have 3 World Series, but the last one was 25 years ago. 23 is Detroit. They've had a solid overall history, which is why they made it this far. 12 Stanley Cups, 4 World Series, 3 NBA championships, but the city is struggling right now. I mean, the Lions have never really been good. They've actually never even made the Super Bowl. The Tigers are okay, but not great. Pistons are a fringe playoff team the past 10 years, and the Red Wings haven't been good in a decade. 22 is New Orleans. They only have 2 teams, and the Pelicans don't have much history because when the Charlotte Hornets changed their name back to the Hornets, they took all the history from the franchise, so they don't have much history. The Saints carried them this far. They're a constant playoff team, always one of the best teams in the NFL, and they have a Super Bowl victory. 21 is Seattle, a very similar situation. The Mariners have been around for over 40 years, and I think they only have like 4 playoff appearances. They've never been good, but the Seahawks have been so good that they carried them this far in the rankings. They're a constant playoff team, even have a Super Bowl victory, so that's why they made it this far. 20th, another 2-sport city, Indianapolis. The Colts and Pacers are just always solid. The Colts do have 2 Super Bowls. The Pacers don't have an NBA championship yet, but overall, both of these teams are always good, so they deserve to be top 20. 19th, Baltimore. The Ravens are always good, constant playoff contenders. They've won 2 Super Bowls, but the Orioles, even though they have 3 World Series, have only made the playoffs 3 times in the last 22 years, so that's why the city wasn't higher. 18th is Minneapolis. Honestly, none of the 4 franchises that play in this city are really that great, but they were saved by 2 things. First, the Vikings have been really good lately. They've been a consistent playoff team for the past decade. And second, the Twins have also been okay the past few years, and they do have 3 World Series titles. 17th is Tampa Bay. None of these 3 franchises are really elite by any means, so that's why they weren't higher, but all 3 of them are just pretty solid. The Rays have been pretty good the past few years. The Lightning have been a consistent playoff team the past 20 years, and they also won a Stanley Cup. The Bucks have a Super Bowl, and they're going to be a team on the rise now with the addition of Tom Brady. 16th, the city saved by LeBron James, Cleveland. They obviously have a recent NBA championship because of him. They made the finals 4 straight seasons. The Indians have been pretty good too. They've been great the past 5 seasons, including a World Series appearance, and they have 2 World Series championships. The only reason Cleveland couldn't be any higher is because the Browns are a joke. Haven't made the playoffs since 2002. Might be on the rise, but right now they're not there yet. 15th is Houston. Now, for these rankings, I'm considering both historical success and recent success. Now, all time, Houston isn't that great. They don't have any Super Bowls. They have 2 NBA championships from in the 90s, and they only have 1 World Series, but that was recently, and it has a little bit of an asterisk beside it. But still, recently, all 3 of their teams have been pretty good. Rockets have been near the top of the NBA. Astros, obviously, like I just said, won a World Series, and the Texans have been a playoff team consistently the past few years. 14th is Kansas City, carried this far by their recent success, obviously with the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl and being one of the best teams in the NFL the past few years. The Royals also have a recent World Series. Although they haven't been great since then, they do have a recent championship. The only reason this city wasn't higher is because their franchises only have a total of 2 World Series and 2 Super Bowls. 13th is Denver. They were hurt by the fact that both the Nuggets and Rockies have 0 championships, but the Broncos do have 3 and the Avalanche have 2, and they made it this far because pretty much every team in this city is always at least solid. 12th is Miami. The city has 7 championships, and the timing of them has been pretty balanced out. The Heat have been good the past 10 to 15 years. The Marlins were good before that, and back in the 70s and 80s, the Dolphins were pretty good. The only reason they weren't good enough to crack the top 10 is because right now, 3 of the 4 teams are not doing very well. The Panthers, Marlins, and Dolphins aren't great, but the Heat were good enough to make them 12th. 11th is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, the Rangers actually don't have any World Series, and the Mavericks and Stars only have 1 championship each, but this city made it this far for 2 reasons. First, the Cowboys used to be a dynasty. In fact, they have 5 Super Bowls, which is one of the most of all the NFL franchises. And secondly, pretty much all of these teams are always at least respectable. Even when they have down years, they're still pretty solid. 10th is Toronto. They were carried this far by the Maple Leafs' 13 Stanley Cups, and although none of them were recent, the city has had recent success with the Raptors. They've been great lately, including the NBA championship last year. The city also has 2 World Series from the Blue Jays. 9th place is Washington, D.C. They have a really good balance of past success and current success. The Redskins have 3 Super Bowls in the past. The Wizards have also won an NBA championship. And over the past decade, both the Nationals and Capitals have been really good. Both have a championship. The city could have been higher if the Wizards or Redskins were doing better right now, but they're still a pretty solid sports town. 8th place is St. Louis, by far the best of all the 2 sports cities, and probably would have been top 5 if they still had the Rams or had a basketball team. But with all the big boys they're competing against, there's just no way they could be any higher, only having 2 sports. But they're doing really well for themselves. Cardinals are one of the best franchises in MLB history with 11 championships. The Blues just won their first Stanley Cup. St. Louis is a great sports city. Here's where the big boys start. 7th place is Philadelphia. All 4 of these teams have at least 2 championships, and with the exception of the Phillies, over the past decade, they've all been consistent playoff contenders. They even have a Super Bowl victory. Not only are their teams great, but their fans are also incredible. 6th place is Chicago. Now, 6 seems to be a common number for this city because it's their number of NBA championships, Stanley Cups, and total World Series. It's a great sports town, and the only reasons it wasn't higher is because the Bulls and Bears have not been great recently, and both of their baseball teams were around for over 100 years and only have 3 championships each, so that's not great, but it's a really good town. 5th place, New York City. It's obvious why they're top 5, but I'm going to explain why they weren't any higher. For this series, I'm considering both all-time history and current success, and only the Yankees and Giants have a title since the 90s. So in a town with 8 teams, only having 4 total championships in 20 years doesn't deserve to be any higher. 4th, Pittsburgh. They have arguably the best franchise in the NFL, a great hockey team with a recent title, and the only reason they weren't top 3 is because the Pirates haven't been great lately. 3rd place is Los Angeles, a ton of great history here with a bunch of championships, one of the best NBA franchises of all time in the Lakers, one of the most iconic MLB franchises in the Dodgers. The only reason they weren't any higher is because both of their football teams just moved back there, so they don't have a great football history there, and out of all 8 teams, they only have 2 championships in the past 10 years. Number 2, the San Francisco Bay Area. Tons of championships and successful teams coming from here. The Warriors have 6 championships. The 49ers have 5. The 2 baseball teams have a combined 17 World Series. And all of these teams have a really good balance of past success and current success. This is a great sports area. And the best pro sports city is obviously Boston. They have the most Super Bowls and NBA championships, 3rd most World Series, 4th most Stanley Cups, and pretty much every single one of their teams is always a playoff contender. This is an amazing sports town.